Yeah. Well, first I want to say like congratulations on becoming parents. Like that's huge.
Thank
How
you.
was that?
Been awesome.
Yeah, it's
Been
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
How was that kind of you think like changed like or added anything to White Ring, like just being parents?
Well, from the standpoint of like just physical time and
Mhm.
like throughout the day, a little bit more occupied, but having a baby, there's kind of all the like cliched things that people say that's like very true. Like there's just a lot more kind of like joy and smiling and laughing throughout the day and stuff, and kind of puts things into perspective too, as far as like what kind of planet you want to have and like leave for your child and stuff. Those consequences become a little more real. So yeah, it changes things for sure. I mean, just kind of like it changes everything.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
changed that. It's definitely a bit more like figuring out how things are a little bit more complicated, I guess. Because there's a person that needs you 24/7. But it's super fun to like see her little personality and just like yeah, she's super fun. Like she loves dancing and climbing everything and stuff.
Do you guys play your music for her?
Yeah.
Yeah, we play like all kinds of music for her. We definitely aren't just like playing like children's music or whatever, but we
Yeah.
also don't play like explicitly like dark stuff for her. Like she's not really rocking out to like heavy metal
She
or like
has her own little
noise.
piano, like a baby Einstein brand piano, and it has like a little accompany like jukebox thing, and like that thing is going 24/7, and she's just hitting it and dancing and getting the doggy sounds out and just banging on it. It's just like it's pretty amazing to watch, like how ingrained the love for music is in humans. Like watching this little baby who like the second she could stand up and like barely walk, she was already dancing and stuff.
Yeah,
And that's such a human expression that's built into us so deeply. It's really interesting to watch that.
definitely.
I also did go on tour when I was like 8 months pregnant, so I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed that. Like, how was that? Was that kind of tough or I
Not
mean,
even it's funny. It's like pregnancy is so different from like moment to moment. You have no idea what it's gonna be like. But
definitely.
I guess I got lucky because it was just easy and it was a really fun tour. And like some other like people that we were touring with and stuff were like, oh, I'm so tired. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm pregnant, but you're like, it wasn't bad. It was fun.
So fun. You guys are kind of from like the generation where the digital age of music was kind of growing in a sense. So I kind of wanted to ask, like, when you first got into music, even before White Ring, before MySpace, before everything, maybe your childhood, how was it like getting into music and then seeing the digital age kind of come about, like with sharing music, everything like that?
It was amazing. I mean, that like I think everyone's kind of born into their own little place and time, and you can choose to embrace it or reject it. But like, I'm really glad to have been around when I was like in middle school. It was like finding CDs at like this like
Mhm.
the record store and stuff like that. And so it was kind of limited in like my smaller town. But like that's when I got really into like Nine Inch Nails and Nirvana, stuff like that. But then like Napster came around by the time I was in like ninth grade. And then it was just like off to the races at that point. It was just like my friends and I would just, it would take a long time to download a song, but we would just be like every night we would have our computer going overnight, downloading albums of like, I grew up skating, like rollerblading. And so that was a big avenue for finding underground music for me. And then that was like quickly what I was like, oh, okay, like there's more stuff out there. And it felt really interesting because it felt so like untapped into at that point. And then by the time MySpace came around, which was when we started putting out our songs and stuff, that was really cool too because it was like a Wild West kind of vibe of like there was no like corporations hadn't like caught on to the digital space yet at all. And so it was a lot more like organic feeling as to the stuff. There's no algorithms and stuff. So you would
Yeah.
just get what you wanted basically. And through mutual friends, it was still very much like word of mouth and finding a friend that liked this, and then you're like, okay, and then you look through what they liked or what they were posting, and then you'd find new stuff. And that was a more preferable way to like that MySpace era, in my opinion, was like a more preferable way to find music than like the era that I grew up in or the era we're in now, where it felt like you were finding more stuff that was like not that you had to seek after it. So there's kind of a gatekeeping element of it involved, but it was kind of nice, you know, because you just found the stuff that felt special to you, and that was like organically actually in that kind of circle of what you were looking for.
And then it would recommend stuff that was not just odd stuff.
Yeah.
That's interesting because that's something like I never had or grew up with in a sense. Like I'm only 20, so when I was like Spotify was already a thing when I was like a baby. Like I don't know. It's interesting. You
Well, you
kind
can
of
always find whatever, you know, like it's just
no,
different
definitely.
things, different ways of doing it, you know.
Yeah. You guys kind of said in one of your lives that I've seen that Black Earth That Made Me, Gate of Grief, and then you wanted like this was before Show Me Heaven, but you kind of said that you wanted to make like a trilogy in a sense. Do you think
Yeah.
Show Me Heaven was that completing third? It was kind of, I remember you saying beginning, middle, end type thing.
Yeah, I think so. At least from when the conception of the band started, we had that idea of the arc of what we wanted it to be like. And essentially it's like it was our lives, like what we were going through, but you know, it mirrors everyone else's. And it's White Ring in general is a story about the spirit and the light that surrounds the dark. And you know, you come from darkness and you go through a bunch of stuff, and then you get to this point where you need to make a conclusion or amends with the stuff that happened before it. And so since about 2010, we had already knew, like Kendra and I, what the like album names would be and what the themes would be as well. And so yeah, I think it was a really good kind of bookend, Show Me Heaven, to that trilogy of a series. And still moving forward, it's like adding on to it, but you know, we're changing up things like as much as we can or want to think and we think is appropriate moving forward. But you know, that those three are kind of, I feel like, always going to be their own era and their own time, regardless of what happens moving forward.
So what do you think, like, what does kind of Show Me Heaven mean as an album? I feel like the album title is a little more like the beauty within the darkness. It seems more like beautiful in like a literal standpoint.
Yeah. So yeah, Show Me Heaven, like, I mean, as a phrase, I feel like that is kind of one of the most powerful phrases that's out there that we all have to or should ask ourselves at some point in time is, you know, you just ask God to show you the beauty that exists within that dark space. And it's kind of like mimetic in the sense that, like, I just wanted everyone to kind of have that phrase that listen to us in their mind, you know. And that's really the starting point for living a kind of a better life and discovering who you truly are. And yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that the show me is important too, the like seeking it out and asking for it.
Yeah, it's like you have to ask, like you have to, it's a consent thing for sure, where it doesn't really get thrusted upon you. It's an internal thing that you have to want, ask for yourself.
That's something like I've kind of struggled with, I guess, like not knowing what I believe in, I guess. When do you guys think it was clear to you, like, I believe in God, I believe in this? When do you think that kind of happened?
That happened, it was something I grew up with.
Oh, I was good. I was thinking of the actual year.
Okay.
Video.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say 2018 was like the actual year. And that happened as a result of just everything in life before, but kind of that like last series of events was Kendra and I kind of splitting paths as far as like our drug addiction and kind of getting caught up in that darkness. And I saw what was happening to me, and I needed to pull away from it. And then I really, from what I could, talk to Kendra, because it was hard to like get a hold of her physically because she was not in even a space where she could talk a lot of times. Yeah, I really understood that like demonic possession and like the consequences of like not dealing with this stuff in the right way, like what happens, you know. And so around 2018 was when that like really became like solidified in our minds. And it's something that we spoke to with Kendra about like quite a bit as well. And it was just very interesting to be so close to someone and watch them go through that and understand that a crazy person is not really crazy like at all. Like they really have this kind of sane, or not sane, but they have this like real set of ideas that are like more real than anything else, really, you know. And like it's very focused on that. And just seeing where that goes is just terrifying. And I just knew that if the darkness was real, then the light also had to be real.
She was interested too. She was like started, especially towards the end of her life, like asking like Bryan a lot of questions about God and stuff.
Yeah, she like wanted to go to church and stuff. One of the like last few times we talked, we were talking about that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just, you know, things happen, and it was really hard. She was already in like a really like dysfunctional spot at that point that it was just too much.
A little bit separate, but I had kind of around that time was like dabbling in some occultist kind of stuff. Not Bryan, but
No.
Bryan exempt. But yeah, it was like a little bit of different types of like witchcraft kind of stuff. And I definitely was hitting rock bottom myself with that, like spiritually, and finding it very like a bit of a roller coaster. Like I think I was doing great or something, and then just like hit new depths of like mental despair and like not doing well. And yeah, then I found God, and that kind of never have even gone, like never looked back basically, and never found myself in that place again. So it feels like really real to me.
Nice. Nice. I wanted to ask, I feel like you guys have been asked this before, but how do you feel about people calling your music witch house? Like, I know you guys are kind of like the pioneers or one of the pioneers of that, and like, I wonder how you guys feel about that.
I'm totally fine with it. Like it's whatever. It's a name, you know, like
Yeah.
all genre names like are kind of whack when you think about it, you know, like shoegaze and shit like
Yeah.
that. But it's cool to you know, and the reason why I think, at least the reason why we're still here and still doing this is that we're in this like unique position to kind of redefine witch house like as we go along, and that we know we're not going to be the most popular of that kind of world with having such a message of like positivity and Christianity and shit like that within such a dark space. But to me, that's the world that I come from, and the world where I know I can help as many people that want to be helped as possible. And so I kind of embraced the name more and more as we get older, because it just doesn't really matter what you call it or whatever. And if that helps people see, like, because even when we first started White Ring, like back in the day, like always thought like gothic music and shit like that was like, I listened to like The Cure and stuff like that growing up, but it's just got this kind of cheesiness to it that is like kind of, I mean, not The Cure. I mean, that's a good example of, I mean, there's some cheesiness, but there's so much of it is this like over the top drama kind of dramatized kind of like worldview that like you see coming from like a 40-year-old man, and you're like, oh dude, like what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like that's like not even like your life, like you're talking about, you know, random ass shit, like I like war battling with like tanks and like fucking castles and Draculas, and just like it's too like fictionalized, like it's a story, like kind of like some
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings shit or something like that, where like it doesn't offer enough uplifting transcendental qualities to it. So I like being in that world and offering a solution and not just kind of like wallowing it.
Good. How do you think, what is kind of playing live shows like? Like I've never gotten to see you guys live, but like Adina, especially with your vocals, like how do you think it changes from like being in a recording standpoint rather than playing live?
Well, it's very different. I don't know. I mean, I have like a Voice Live 3 pedal that I'm having a lot of fun with. And I feel like over time playing with that, like I used to just have like a little boss pedal 2 years ago. Yeah, I feel like we've gotten the effects pretty dialed in. So I don't know, like our last like actual tour when I was pregnant, some people were saying that it sounded like the album, which was like I guess cool to hear that, because it is, I don't know, it's very different. I mean, we're definitely not trying to make it like our live performances are like different than a different experience than the album. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because the nature of the recordings are so densely packed with effects, and you're very limited in a live scenario as to what you can do effect wise. But it's fun because like watching bands play stuff live, like there's always that element of it sounding different, and you just kind of want to make it sound enough like the album, but give it enough to where it sounds like there's some extra energy on top of it, you know. And so we just kind of go with, you know, what like technology will allow us to do as far as like effects.
But I think we're getting pretty happy with the like live sound and stuff these days.
I also really love, Adina, your fashion style and your fashion sense. What do you kind of like, where do you get your clothes? Like,
Thank you. I don't know, thrift, but although honestly, like 99% of the time when I go thrifting, I walk away with nothing. So I don't, I like make stuff sometimes or modify things. And I don't know, I've been pretty, feel like I'm always a bit unhappy with my wardrobe and
oh,
kind of overhauling it. And I also don't have a lot of time right now to, I don't know, but I've gone back into sewing again. I've been getting a little bit more time and like getting more interested in it. But fruits book, like you know, Fruits magazine, like the
yeah,
Sofia.
I have one hanging like right there. You can't see it, but that is like my absolute, I have two right now.
Hi.
I love
Literally an arm's
it.
reach. But yeah, that was like growing up very important. But
That's like
yeah,
my favorite.
yeah.
What do you guys think is kind of like White Ring's ethos? Like now, maybe at least too. What do you guys want to just like, what's your message in simple terms?
Uplifting out of the darkness has always been our message, and I think it just gets stronger as we go. In like 2010 when we started, it was that, and it was really hard like explaining to my grandmother and shit like what the idea behind the music was. But as time goes on, like it's more clear. It's not just about this kind of like really like heavy, like dense feeling music just to kind of keep you down. And it's really just about uplifting people like from that, and that you have to kind of we all exist in that world. And so that's where we have to operate from. And so yeah, that's always kind of been our motto, is just like uplifting out of the dark.
And I guess I just wanted to talk about, you guys have a show coming up November 24th.
Yeah, it's going to be a premiere of our new album, which through the recording process, having the baby and stuff, we kind of realized that it was going to become more heavy on me doing vocals and stuff, because time was much more limited. And since like 2013, I had this idea for an album called Angel 13, which explores the more masculine, kind of aggressive side of the stuff that we've been talking about, those themes, where, you know, White Ring and that kind of trilogy of the first three is about the spirit. This album is about like the battle, like that kind of war, that spiritual warfare that goes on. And I think like a female's voice is usually the best way to get a message across, but in this type of context, I figured it was like kind of more of a masculinized thing. And so I did a lot of the vocals for it, and it's going to be just me performing at this show too. And so yeah, because of the baby, like what we're trying to figure out also like a setup too, where we'll still perform with the two of us, but like for certain things, we wanted to at least be able to have some material as well that had a strong message that I could perform on my own. And it's more like a kind of like aggressive. There's like rapping and there's like subtler, like kind of singing in it and stuff. And it's going to be presented like more as like a traditional, like kind of rap performance, although it's not like rap music necessarily. But yeah, so we're like just trying to like figure out like a way to retool the setup when we need to have it be a little bit different, and like have a strong message with that as well. And so figured this would be a good time to explore those themes, and it really fits in well. Like it's very timely with where we're at like culturally right now, where it's not something where I at least really felt like making a really kind of nice album. Like I wanted to really kind of explore the more like harsher parts, but there's still plenty of that. It's still very much a White Ring album. And you know, actually it's like a couple of our softest songs are also on it too, so kind of balance it out. Like we don't want it to like just hit people over the head like over and over with like kind of the same messaging, you know. But so it's very much like kind of on the extremes of where we've been before in the past. And so it was really fun to play with that. And we still have a lot more material that just needs to kind of get properly recorded and produced and whatnot. And so we're going to try to do a volume 2 like shortly after as a release, and kind of figure out like where to go from there. But that's like kind of the Angel 13 kind of like arc of what we're trying to do with it.
It's a pretty big departure from Show Me Heaven, but it's also kind of like what you're saying about the trilogy of Gate of Grief to Show Me Heaven, how it started off obviously with like Kendra's vocals and then slowly transitioned to my vocals, and now like Bryan's doing more vocals. So we feel like it's kind of a full circle thing to like sort of incorporate those elements. And yeah, we just have also just a much bigger repertoire now, so when we do play live, like we just have a lot of different options for live sets and like different configurations.
And we've always really liked the idea of White Ring being very fluid, and like it not being that kind of paint by numbers witch house sound thing. Like I really think that type of stuff had its place in time, like certainly, but the like specific sounds and presets and all that type of stuff is not what makes that music so unique and impactful. It's the context that it was delivered in, you know, culturally. And so that's kind of always what we're trying to do with the music, is have it be something where the listener is thrown off a bit but not alienated by it.
Okay. Yeah. And do you think, will the album come out on streaming the 24th, or are you gonna do like the premiere and then maybe release it after?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do, is just do like a live premiere, like, you know, as a way to I just thought it'd be kind of more interesting of a rollout to do something live first. And then we don't have a date yet for when it's going to be on streaming and physical. We're like working through the manufacturing process and all that stuff at the moment. And we'll have probably shortly after the show, we'll have like a release date where at least people will know when it's coming out.
Well, I'm super excited. Do you guys have plans to like do more shows as the time kind of goes on in different areas? I feel like you guys perform in New York a lot, right?
Yeah. New York is the easiest place for us to perform. We met there, we lived there for a long time, know a lot of people, and that's, I think, where our biggest fan base still is, and where we get the most kind of offers and whatnot. But yeah, we have some stuff that may be coming up in the spring together. And we also have some stuff that may be coming up later in the spring solo for just me, like overseas. So we're kind of trying to work out the details on that now, but we're definitely, that was a big reason why we wanted to have this new album out, as well as there are some songs where it's like mostly just Adina on vocals. And I still want to like play those live, and like I don't want to like give away too much or whatever, but it's just kind of like her presence will be there on the album and in the live show. But because we're so limited with the baby and childcare and stuff like that, we wanted to be able to play like more shows than we typically do. And even if it meant that I had to go out and do it solo, that's what we're gonna do. But the goal is definitely to play as much as we can together, and then when that doesn't work, play as much as possible just me, and try to like play a lot more than we typically have been playing over the past few years, like since COVID or whatever.
Yeah. Definitely like COVID and then baby, but there's definitely so many specific areas that we're like dying to go to, and like we'll definitely be in soon. But like, I don't know, personally Texas is really high on my list, and like going back to Atlanta and stuff, and LA, it's been way too long since we've been out there. But yeah, definitely more shows in the future.
Yeah, come to Milwaukee or Chicago, so I will be there if you guys ever do.
Yeah, we'll be back.
That's kind of all I have for you guys, but please don't stop making music, because I love it and the people do too.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we won't. I don't think we can at this point.
Yeah,
it's too baked into just life at this moment. Or like, yeah, it's just it's with the baby and stuff, you know, it's kind of like you start thinking more about like real work and shit like that, you know, and like steady paychecks and stuff. But it's like just so like I said earlier, like I grew up skating, and there's this kind of culture around that is like been brought into my music, which is kind of the exact same as like the punk rock kind of attitude of just being like, this is just like who we are. We're like rats that like you can't get rid of, essentially. So like we're not gonna go anywhere, you know, like it's just you can't get rid of us, basically.
Well, thank you guys so much for meeting with me. That was great.
Very nice. Yeah.